Montgomery College's first TEDx talk. That's kind of cool, and I'm the first speaker, so thank you. I came across this curious fact recently. It's about, of all things, catfish. Catfish, from its tail to the barbels in front, its entire body is covered with taste buds. Over 175,000 taste buds on this fish, on a full-grown fish. By comparison, a human being has 2,000 to 8,000 taste buds on its tongue. Because of the murky water that it lives in, it needs taste to decipher the world, and it's how it finds, from a distance, other catfish, food to eat, things like that. I thought that was kind of cool, and so I told my sons this fact, and they gave back another cool fact to me, which is that the world is filled with hurricanes that have names, but there's one thunderstorm in the world that has a name. It's a great name, Hector the Convector. Hector appears every single day at exactly 3 p.m. from September until March over the Tiwi Islands of Australia. Because of the unique landmass and water, this giant cumulonimbus cloud as high as 60,000 feet forms at 3 p.m., has incredible lightning and rain, and then by 6 o'clock it dissipates. Pilots in World War II, American pilots, used it for navigation. Now, I love obscure facts like these, but I also like practical facts. So I moved here 8 years ago, and I quickly observed that this area is absolutely rich with Asian cuisine. So I asked myself recently the question, I wonder how many places nearby can I get a good bowl of Asian noodles or dumplings? And I compiled, actually counted, and the answer is 35 places within 3 miles of here that you can get a great bowl of noodles or dumplings. And to help you, we made copies of this in the back so you can take it with you. On a more serious note, I also wondered about the safety of this area. And so I recently wanted to find out, actually for this talk, what are the chances that if you drove here, that your car might get stolen during this talk? Now, I'm very relieved to tell you the answer is just about 0. This is an incredibly safe campus. But I did discover something rather fascinating, which is that every college and every university that gets any federal funds whatsoever has to issue a public safety report every year that details every crime that is reported on the campus. So I pulled up this report, and then for the novelty of it, I decided, let's compare it to another campus that has a similar number of students as on the Rockville campus of this college. So I picked Harvard University. So interestingly, the car thefts in the past 3 calendar years, there have been all of 3 car thefts here on this campus, but 352 at Harvard. Robberies, 0 on this campus, 3 there. Hate crimes, 4 have been reported here, 23 at Harvard. And rapes, I'm very relieved and happy to say 0 on this campus, but 38 at Harvard. So you could argue that in some ways you're far better off in Montgomery College than you are at Harvard. I'm amusing you with odd facts, yeah, odd facts and curiosities can make for a good presentation. But my point is actually much deeper than that. I would argue that curiosity is one of the most important human traits there is. That curiosity is crucial to attaining lifetime happiness and also to career success. It's one of the most powerful human traits, but also one of the least studied and least acknowledged. Now, this is changing. Science is starting to catch up with this fact. There are some professors in particular. Shigehiro Oishi is at the University of Chicago, and Aaron Westgate is a collaborator at the University of Florida. They are psychology professors who have written a lot about the role of curiosity in well-being. Now, ever since the days of ancient Greece, well-being arguments have been bipolar. There's two paths. One is the happy life, hedonism. Pursue passion and joy, that a life is good if you've had more happiness than sadness. The other side of the debate for thousands of years is a life of meaning or purpose, that your job is to make the world a better place. Well, the new science is saying there's a third argument that's equally as powerful. And they use this great phrase for it, which is psychological richness. It is curiosity. It is a hunger to learn. It is hunger to have experiences. It is traveling. It is trying new foods. It is reading interesting new books. And that an essential part of being a well-rounded human being is developing this richness, the psychological richness. Now, the good news is that it's easy. You are all professional at being curiosity. And I say that because other than perhaps a few overachievers, all of you were 4-year-old once. We are born and we developed with curiosity. It's an innate characteristic of us. We ask questions to learn as a child. And in truth, that curiosity stays with you and can stay with you into your adulthood. And the good news there is that you can be curious without a large education. It has no socioeconomic parameters to it. It has no parameters related to attained education. Everyone can be curious. Now, the challenge, though, is that our culture is not very good at stoking curiosity. In fact, the opposite. Parents, either for culture reasons or exhaustion, tend to start saying, because I told you so, and start nipping the questions. Schools aren't really there to foster people's personal curiosity. They have an agenda to teach you a mandatory set of knowledge and to test you, and that's really not about pursuing your own innate curiosities. Even the workplace tends to take the questioning worker as more of a nuisance than as an innovator. So let's talk a little bit about creativity and curiosity in the workplace. It turns out that pushing workers down is a rather foolish thing, because one of the hallmarks of corporate success is having a curious, probing culture within your organization. Now, Netflix is often held up as a beacon of a curious organization. For those of you who are younger than 35, you may not know that Netflix started as a DVD rental company where you would order a DVD, it would come in the mail, you would watch it, and then you would return it in this envelope that they provided you, and once it got returned, you could rent another one. And they were years, that was the entirety of their business, until around 2006, when in the questioning they had within the organization, the boss said, what happens if DVDs become obsolete? And they started to ponder that. And within 1 year, this is just 6 or 8 years after the launch of the internet, they came up with this idea of streaming services. And 18 years later, you all know what a monolith Netflix has become. Similarly, NVIDIA is known for its creative culture and its curious culture. Its president and CEO recently gave a speech, said never stop asking questions and seeking answers. Curiosity fuels progress. They were steady, stable, creating chips for graphics for a long time until they realized these chips are perfect for artificial intelligence usage. Now NVIDIA has overtaken Apple as the world's most valuable company. Now the flip side is that the highway is littered with the remains of companies that have failed because they were known to have very staid, unquestioning status quo cultures. These are just 8 of many companies that 30, 40 years ago were at the peak of their powers and their industries, and yet did not adapt because they weren't curious. Now, in my own industry, I'm an editor and a publisher of some 40 years, and my curiosities have all laid in the power of words. Words that can make people make change, to do something, sometimes to buy a product, but also to go to someone using power of words to improve their health or to save money. And I've been lucky to work at several companies that had large research operations, would let me ask questions. So in 2002, I arrived at the Reader's Digest Association to take leadership of their book program. And they were working on a book called Gardening Secrets. And I asked the research department, can we go and do some research around the title? They said, well, what's wrong with it? It's tested well already. I said, it's good. Secrets is a good, powerful word, but I think we can turn the dial up. So they said, well, what do you want to test? So I said, well, let's start with 1,519 gardening secrets. They rolled their eyes and said, okay. I said, but let's also test 1,519 all-natural gardening secrets. And they rolled their eyes even more. And I said, but I'm not done. Let's also test 1,519 all-natural, all-amazing gardening secrets. And they all threw up. But we actually put this out in the marketplace. And every time we added a word, it added 3 to 6% interest in purchasing the product. So we put that title on. We added lots of strong support language. It's actually a very thick book, packed with tips. It's the best-selling gardening book they ever had. Made millions of dollars. So I asked a lot of these kind of questions. And a research project I did, and I merely went to customers and asked them, I'm going to give you a list of 20 adjectives, 20 nouns, 20 verbs. Tell me which 3 you have the strongest response to. And the results are here. It's kind of interesting. You know, money saving is kind of obvious, as is natural. Healthy. What I found fascinating was that forbidden and sneaky got such negative response. And so I actually tortured one of my editors and said, I want you to come up with book titles that include the word forbidden. I want to test those. And he actually came back with this great book idea. It was called Forbidden Advice, what lawyers and doctors and gardeners and plumbers, etc., don't want you to know about saving money and time and hassle. And we tested that, and it was off the charts. So that was interesting, the power of words, curiosity about them. Interesting also in the nouns is programs and plans comes in last place. Now, how many books are out there? The 21-day plan to do this, 21 days. People don't like plans. People like shortcuts. They want tips. You know, look at the tips, shortcuts, time savers, solutions. I quickly learned that if I push out a strong plan, people aren't going to respond very well. But if I give them lots of tips and advice, they love it. So, power of words, curiosity. It was just asking interesting questions. So, let's segue into the rest of life. I made a joke, I think, earlier about dates. In truth, curiosity fuels personal life equally. Asking questions like, what's the greatest day you have ever had? What's the greatest night you've ever had? What's the strangest meal you've ever eaten? What's the best vacation you've ever been on? Questions like that fuel great conversation. It's how you find connectivity. As a parent, that parent who stokes creativity, who finds delight in the turtle as much as the kid and rushes inside to do research on it, is a parent that is doing a great job and is beloved. So curiosity is fabulous. Whoop, can you go back? Here's a very important point. We live right now in an era of non-curiosity. And this is something to think about deeply. On the political and religious and cultural side, we live in a time of great divides. And within the time of divides, you are asked not to ask questions, but to accept a particular dogma. And I'm not pointing to anyone, I'm talking all sides of this. And I firmly believe that curiosity is more essential now than ever before to ask questions about what's the truth here. I would argue that there's one question that each of you should ask several times a day as the most important question of all for these times, and that if we all asked it more, we could start solving some problems. And now, this is the question. Is it really true? Don't just ask that of the other side, ask that of your side. Is it really true? And then go do some real research and try to find it and get the answer to it. Go ahead. I'm also would argue that the way we entertain ourselves today is anti-curiosity. Most of you recognize these. These are the most popular social media. Sitting there and watching crazy dogs and chefs and athletes and gamers, that is not curiosity. Curiosity is active engagement. It is you pursuing your own interests and trying to answer questions. Now, yes, this can spark some curiosity. I do watch some of these. In truth, I get entertained. And noting that I love food, I like to watch street vendors cook. But then I think, can I make that? And in particular, I wanted to learn how to make pad thai because I love pad thai. You know, it's the great Thai noodle dish. Do the slide. So I actually, instead of just watching it, I looked up some recipes and I found out this great fact, which is the sauce of pad thai is just 3 ingredients. It's palm sugar, tamarind paste, and bottled fish sauce. So this is my kitchen with all the ingredients prepped to go into the wok, and it turned out to be pretty good pad thai. Which brings me back in some strange way to catfish. It's an interesting anecdote that they're covered with taste buds, but to me that became something more of a metaphor. And so this is one of my final messages to you, which is, it's a little corny, but be like a catfish. Swim through your days tasting all you can. Be curious. It is proven to be a great source of success and life happiness. Interestingly, Albert Einstein, the very last thing he wrote before passing away was an essay for Life magazine. It was called Old Man's Advice to Youth. In that essay, he too said, the important thing is not to stop questioning. Never lose a holy curiosity. If you don't believe me, you can believe it from Albert. So thank you.